what do you say about the decision of the parliament, recognition of the Palestine as a country?
From my personal point of view, I would like to assent that we should have done it maybe a little sooner. But I understand the political process. It's always, complicated. Even in Slovenia, the political parties are not united regarding this. Some of them were against. But the most important thing is that Palestine is recognized. From my point of view, it's really very important to recognize Palestine because we are advocating a two-state solution. I am not naive. I know that this is not going to stop the war and atrocities which are going on. But the most important part of that is that we are aware that we have to change a bit ourselves as well to continue with the process. And we must never forget that at the time that we are speaking, 2 kids are going to lose life in Palestine, only in those 10 minutes of the debate. There are 80% of the people in Palestine who are displaced. Some people say, that Palestine is the biggest concentration camp in the world currently. If you are a human being, and myself being a mother and a wife, I do have problems to understand why the humanity is in a bad position, in a bad shape currently. I really, really have hard times with myself with that. And whenever I have the possibility, I try to advocate humanity and respecting of the international law. Humanitarian law is one of the bases of the international law, that's for sure. So this is why it is so important to recognize Palestine.
After the recognition, does Slovenia plan to open an embassy in Palestine?
In due course, of course. Currently, we do have a special mission. We do have an ambassador there in Ramallah who's doing an excellent job. But the prediction and then the plan of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Slovenian government is to open an embassy in Palestine.
In one of your statements, you compared the Markala massacre to Israeli bombing of over 100 Palestinians waiting for aid. Actually, you said the history repeating itself. So haven't we learned anything from the history? How we can stop these prolonged conflicts and atrocities?
Today, there are 55 armed conflicts currently going on, which is the highest number after the Second World War. Why? I often ask this question. Myself, I ask this question to other fellow presidents and prime ministers. I do have a feeling, that the United Nations, which is the only multilateral body that we do have, and we have to nurture it because it is the right platform to discuss peace and security, is now in big trouble. We do have also, if I may say so, a war with veto powers inside the Security Council. And I think that one day, and I hope that this day will come soon, we will have to start thinking more about how to change the United Nations. There are a couple of initiatives already. It's not going to be easy. I remember when I was young, whenever and wherever a conflict in this planet occurred, the blue helmets were there ready to put themselves into the middle and prevent the civilians, protect the civilian people against the bullets and shells. Mm-hmm. Today, the blue helmets are not sent basically anywhere. And that's wrong. So this is why...
What is the reason for that, do you think?
Because of the veto powers. The Security Council has to vote to send the blue helmets. So again, it's a political problem, political troubles. And this is why the political powers needs to be more responsible, sometimes even more courageous.
We see today daily suffering and killings of media workers in Gaza.
Yes.
Do you think does that prevent presenting the real picture of Gaza? Especially you were a journalist.
Yes, for many years.
And from that perspective,
yes.
What do you say about it?
Journalists are sometimes the only witnesses of what is going on, beside the humanitarian organizations, of course, and the people who do live there. I read a couple of articles also that, sometimes journalists are killed on purpose And that's the violation of the international law as well. 122 journalists died in Palestine. That means that a lot of atrocities, a lot of victims, a lot of brutal things which are going on in Palestine are not revealed to the public. That means that the general public over the whole planet is sometimes in darkness. But the darkness is also the place where the humanity dies. And this is why the profession of journalism is so important. I feel sorry for every loss of the humanitarian workers and journalists. Journalists are professionals. They're risking their lives to tell the stories to the world. And I would really ask all the involved parties to let them do their job.
There is also another perspective for that. Already we are talking about the media. How do you view the major differences in media reports about Gazi?
That's worrying sometimes. The profession has standards and they need to be respected. And journalism is an important part of every single democracy. Freedom of speech is the human right that we have to nurture like the diamond of the democracy. And this is what I am always advocating as well. You know, I was a journalist for 12 years. I know what journalism is all about. You have good and you have bad journalists, but they all have codes of ethics. Not all of them do respect that, but you always find also in the journalistic professionalism, in the journalistic group, people who are totally dedicated to professionalism. And the readers should be careful and should know how to see which journalist is to be trusted or not. So it's on us, readers, at the end.
How is Slovenia participating in South Africa's ICJ lawsuit against Israel?
We just joined to the advisory opinion on that was basically filed to the court in the same period of time. I would like to say that South Africa did an enormous job. The content is the right content, but we joined to support the issuing of the advisory opinion of the ICJ.
So how do you plan to contribute?
Well, you know, the content is the right one. And if I may say here something, Slovenia is a true believer of the international law rule. The rule of law is something that I do believe in as a lawyer. And if we leave the international law not to be respected, then nothing good will happen at the end. And I do believe that International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court should be left to do their job. They work on legal merits, on proofs, on data which is going to show whether somebody committed a crime or not. Slovenia has signed the Rome Statute. So for us, there is no doubt that we have to respect the court's rule. And I wish that the judges, I'm pretty sure that they are aware of the obligation and the burden on their shoulders, that they should decide upon legal merits and not on political merits. That's what I wish from all the courts, and that's why I so strongly support the international law.
Actually, while we are talking and mentioning the judicial process, I would like to mention to the subject about some European countries, actually even one regional country, are selling weapons to Israel. From the lawyer's perspective again, actually, can these actions be treated later in the judicial process?
I'm pretty sure that you are aware of the fact of the lawsuit Nicaragua versus Germany. So Nicaragua is claiming that Germany is, by selling the weapons to Israel, supporting the war and war crimes. Again, the court has a very difficult task. Even the International Criminal Court, the prosecutor and the court itself are going to tackle this problem. But let them do their work, and it is going to be a very important precedent.
I would like to go back to the subject about the UN resolution on Srebrenica. Actually, how do you comment on Slovenia voting for the UN resolution on Srebrenica while major war crimes are taking place in Gazi?
For Slovenia, it was never a doubt that the genocide happened in Srebrenica. After the International Court in The Hague, which was established for the crimes in the territory of ex-Yugoslavia, the decision of the court was clear. I'm happy that Slovenia doesn't have any doubts to support that kind of a resolution. The majority of the countries, members of the UN, supported that resolution. But I am sad to see that 30 years after, still some countries do not want to admit that the genocide happened. And more horrifying fact even is that we are discussing Srebrenica genocide in the situation where other genocides are in progress, possible ones, still for the courts to evaluate. And did we learn anything? How often do we say never again? Are those two words empty words today? It looks like sometimes. But I would just like to remind you what's written in the museum in I think it's in Sarajevo about Srebrenica. There is one really, really important saying there. The emergence of evil is going to happen when good people say or do nothing. I want to be among those good people who do say something, who try to do something. If we are not going to work towards a two-state solution, I don't know what a solution at the end could be if not a two-state solution. So every single politician in this planet, the most importantly, politicians from Israel and Palestine, should work hard to reach this. The international community will help, Slovenia will help, but let us do something faster, because people are dying on a daily basis. And if I can be brutally honest to you, sometimes I can even not watch the evening news anymore. I cannot. It's devastating for me, for my son, for my husband, and I wish this to stop. I really do, from the bottom of my heart.
The mention to the killings, that there is also, you would understand better, to be honest, humanitarian workers, killings of them, as a former president of the Red Cross of Slovenia. How crucial do you find the role of humanitarian workers in war zones?
Very crucial. That's the only help that the people in war zones can get. And the international law, again, the Geneva Conventions and the rest of the international laws are written because of the fact that people in war zones need help. You know, even war has rules, but we are not respecting those rules right now. And I know that 158 humanitarian workers were killed in Palestine as well. People are in lack of food and water. I just read an article, you know, in which the journalist was explaining that in Gaza Strip, people have to survive with 3 liters of water per day for everything. Washing themselves, cooking, drinking. Can you imagine living with 3 liters of water per day? Some even with no water in some days, because humanitarian aid is not reaching them. Is this humane? No, it's not. And this is why humanitarian organizations are doing an enormous job. What UNRWA is doing and the other humanitarian organizations is the only hope people have nowadays in Palestine. Can you imagine that you can not give any food to your kid? I cannot imagine that. It's devastating. It's breaking the heart. It should break the heart of every single person who has humanity in its heart. Her or her heart. His or her heart, sorry. So I would really like to see that at least humanitarian law is respected. There were many resolutions adopted in Security Council also, but they are just simply not respected.
How can Slovenia's EU accession experience help other regional countries, and what are the main challenges that they face here in the region?
Oh, there are many challenges, many obstacles. But let me start with what was the added value for Slovenia to enter the European Union. This is what I try to advocate and be vocal about on Western Balkan countries whenever I go there. Slovenia is celebrating 20th anniversary this year of entering European Union. 20 years ago, our GDP, the gross domestic product per capita, was 17,000 euros. Today, it's 33,000 euros, so it nearly doubled. And European Union, for me, is a shrine of the rule of law, human rights, freedom. So this is why I am a believer in European Union. And Western Balkan countries are Europe. And we are supporting all the countries from Western Balkans. What are the obstacles? I have to be honest that there are obstacles on both sides. Sometimes I have the feeling, that the countries in the Western Balkans do not have the real wish to enter the European Union. Some of them are clearly showing this. And sometimes I also have a feeling that the European Union is not ready to accept new member states. So on both sides, we have to do our job. For example, what is Slovenia doing? Slovenia is now in the group of countries which are promoting the so-called qualified majority vote. Why is this so important? Qualified majority votes mean that unified decision is not needed to open different chapters of negotiation process. Slovenia's wish is, let us give those countries the opportunity to open all chapters, to close them with the qualified majority vote opening, and then at the end, let's have a unanimous vote whether these countries can enter or not. I think this is the right step towards that, but I think that for the security of European Union, it's a must that the countries in Western Balkans do enter. Because when you are in European Union, you should and you must forget about the bilateral problems between the countries. Schengen, for example, open borders, that's an enormous plus for economy. Enormous plus. So European Union, if you ask me, has more pluses than minuses. This is why I think that we should welcome the countries. 9 are in the waiting room, so are we going to see another big bang like in 2004 where 10 countries, including Slovenia, entered the European Union, or is it going to be step by step, one country which is ready and then the next one? So those are the topics that we have to discuss. Otherwise, the Western Balkan countries are sometimes called the barrel of gunpowder. And the war in the Western Balkan has shown us that it can be brutal and bloody as well. I don't want any wars in the Balkan region anymore. And I really do hope what's the most important thing, that Kosovo and Serbia will find the solution to solve the bilateral problem. So this is what we have to work on. And this is what Europe is all about. I do believe that in the near future, we will welcome the Western Balkan countries in the European Union family, Bosnia and Herzegovina included.
What is your opinion on the Turkish-Slovenian strategic partnership and their potential cooperation in regional peace and stability?
Turkey and Slovenia are bordering Western Balkan countries. Turkey is a big country with an enormous potential. And I'm pretty sure that President Erdogan and Turkish people want peace in the region. So this is what we have to work on. And regarding the relationship between Slovenia and Turkey, I can say only good and positive words about it. The bilateral exchange in business is close to 1.4 billion. There is a lot of possibility to cooperate. I can easily tell you one thing, that Slovenian people love traveling. And Turkey is one of the destinations to go. I was in many parts of Turkey, in Cappadocia, in Pamukkale, Alanya, Antalya, Istanbul, of course, Ankara. But I also think that Slovenia has a lot to offer to Turkish people to come as tourists here. So there is a lot of possibilities to make this cooperation even better.
Thank you for having us.
More than welcome.